Hello, I'm John Kimball from Social Entropy. We're based in Dallas, Texas in the USA. Today we wanted to, actually this week at NAMM we just introduced our new hardware pattern sequencer called Engine. So it's a hardware sequencer. It's got, in terms of connectivity, USB MIDI, standard MIDI input and output, DIN sync input and output, and an optional CV gate expansion board. There's 8 pairs of CV gate that correspond to the 8 available tracks for sequencing. So the sequencer here we've got set up, we're talking to basically a Windows machine now that's just hosting some VST instruments. So this is going to be where the sound is coming from, and this is going to be controlling those VSTs. So if we start from the machine, we can see it's got 8 different tracks. Each track can have a pattern assigned to it or a chain of patterns. So you can assign up to a pattern, a chain of 16 patterns. And then within each one, each pattern has a specific type. The patterns really only share a master clock, so each pattern can have its own timing parameters. If we go into time mode, these patterns have 8 different types of scales, so you can have the standard 4/4 scale where these are 16th notes, 32nd notes, 8th notes, or quarter notes, and then you also have the triplet version of all those. So you've got 8 total scales. And then you've also got shuffle per pattern, so you've got different levels of shuffle depending on the resolution of the track and the type of track. You can also set the last step of the pattern. The pattern can be up to 64 steps in length, and that can be, again, independent per track. So each track can have a different length. And then a little more advanced is you can do step skipping, so you can turn on or off individual steps of the sequence, so you can skip those steps. So in terms of the patterns themselves, again, we've got 2 different types of patterns. We have a drum type pattern and a synth type pattern. So in this track we've got selected here, track 5, we're in a drum type pattern. So this represents on the grid the bass drum in this case. So we can see in a drum type pattern we've got 8 different instruments. So we've got an external instrument which comes out the CV gate output, bass drum, snare drum. These are freely assignable to any MIDI note number. So right now I've got the bass drum selected, so that's what's being shown here on the grid. I can move between the 32 steps for this pattern by clicking the section button, and you can see that there's a bit of a variation here on the end of the measure. So I'm going to go ahead and start the sequencer. Everything can be done while the sequencer is running, so I'll go ahead and start it. It's just playing a basic 909 kick drum. You can obviously program directly on the grid, so you can single click and it gives you a non-accented note. You can also double click and it's going to give you an accented note. So in addition to that, we also have a record button here. So you can go into record, and now the instrument buttons become real-time pads. So you can real-time record your performance for all the drum instruments right into the pattern. And you can simultaneously be grid recording and programming and in real-time record. So you can see I entered a note here. I can go ahead and remove that and still be in live record mode. So I can be editing the instruments at the same time. And in addition to that, for drum type tracks, we have a roll mode. So when you go into roll mode, that allows you to do like a note repeat. So if you wanted to do a snare drum roll, for example, I can go ahead and introduce a snare roll here with different resolutions. You can in real time add accents to the drum roll. So say we're accenting the snare roll, you can immediately drop into record. So I can go into record mode and record that performance right into the pattern. And I can either do that or I can leave it out of record mode and just use it as a live performance tool, which will override the recorded pattern while I'm using it as a live performance tool. So that can also be done through an external MIDI controller. So if you had an external pad controller, you could use the pad controller to enter the drum programming in real time. And it's going to respect the accent, the velocity of the incoming MIDI to enter the notes in accent automatically. So that's a drum type programming. The other type is a synth type track. So for a synth type track, again, I'll switch to track 1 here, which is a synth type track. You have grid programming for the synth type track, but for a synth type, you hold down where you want a particular note to begin. You can click the second step to define the length of the note. So you can see the length of the note is shown by the dimmer LEDs. In addition, you can set the pitch of the selected note on the mini keyboard. so you can select it based on the semitones. As well, you can transpose the note up and down by octaves. So we've got an 8-octave range that you can transpose the note by octaves. You can enter accents and slides as well. So if I wanted to accent the note, for example, add a slide. So much like in the drum type programming, you can also automatically add an accent to the sequence by double-clicking the step button as you enter the note. So if I double-click the note, it automatically created an accented note as I entered it. So that's the grid programming for a synth type track. Again, we have real-time recording now. So you can go into real-time record, and now the mini keyboard can be played in real time to record the synth line. So I can, and you can see as I'm recording it, it's entering it here into the grid. So you can, again, do this simultaneously. You can be grid editing on the steps, as well as be in real-time record and entering the notes in real time. And I was playing the pitches legato, so as I'm entering the pitches legato, it'll automatically enter the steps with a slide on them. And again, you can do that from an external MIDI controller as well. So if you play legato, it will enter the slides. If you play with a high velocity, it's going to automatically enter the notes with an accent. So in addition to that, much like we had a drum roll, we also have an arpeggiator on a synth track. So if we go into the arpeggiator, right now we're just using this as a live performance arpeggiator, so I can go ahead and play the arpeggio in real time here on the mini keyboard. If I like what's going on, so I have some arpeggio I like, right now it's overriding the recorded sequence, and when I leave the arpeggio, it goes back to the recorded sequence. But we can also drop immediately into record mode while the arpeggio is playing and record the arpeggio directly into the sequence. So now I'm recording this sequence of the arpeggio into the sequence. And I can let go, and now it's in the pattern. I can stay in record mode and leave the arpeggiator, and I can go into transpose mode. And what that allows us to do is in real time add the additional parameters of the steps, so accents, slides, transpose by semitone and octave right into the sequence. So I can go ahead and add some accents here and some slides. So it's recording those now in real time into the sequence. You can also remove those attributes as well. So if you hold the mute button, it's going to remove whatever you're holding here. So you're removing accents or you're removing slides. And again, you can stay in transpose mode now and leave record mode, and now this should just become a live performance tool. So I can transpose the whole pattern, up octaves, down octaves. I could do all accents, so accenting every note, sliding every note, transposing by semitones. So I can leave that mode now, and we've also got a set of 6 controllers across the top of the machine, which can be assigned to MIDI controllers. So right now I've got these assigned to the 303 synthesis parameters. So I can use these to tweak the sound in real time while the pattern's playing. So you can hear the changes in the sound. So now that we've got the patterns that we like, we've generated some sequences that we like, you can go ahead and start to begin to build a song. So if we're on the first track here, which is what we see on the grid, if we hold the mute button down, now we can mute individual tracks. So I can go ahead and mute the drum track, for example, or I can mute the synthesis track, and you've got 8 tracks again. So you've got 8 tracks that you can mute or unmute to begin to build a song structure. In addition, for drum type tracks, you can mute the individual instruments. So you can mute just the kick drum or just the snare drum, and let me unmute. So I can mute just the snare drum, just the bass drum, or I can mute the entire track. So I can mute just the bass drum track. So once you've got that set of patterns, the mutes that you like, the transpose, the set of patterns you have selected, pattern chaining, you can go into snapshot mode. So in snapshot mode, it's going to record all the settings of those things into a single button press. So I can choose the set of muting I like, so I'll unmute the drum track here. I can hold record and save the snapshot into the snapshot location. I can stay in snapshot mode, and now I can change the muting. So now maybe I'll have a breakdown with just the synthesis. I can go ahead and record that to a new slot. And now I can switch back and forth between those snapshots, and it's going to reapply those settings to the entire setup. And you can begin to use that to build out a song structure if you want to do a real-time performance of a song by switching every aspect of the muting, the selected patterns, the transpose. You can do that all within the snapshot mode. So then in song mode, you can begin to record the sequence of snapshots into a song structure that you can then play back automatically. And then in addition to that, all of the programming aspects of it are available at the same time. So you could be doing real-time muting, real-time transpose, pattern chaining, while the snapshots are being used and in song mode.